I'm going to talk, and I've got a very small audience in person today. I've got Miss Vanessa, one staff member, and everybody else is listening at home. So I'm just going to get your energy through the phone, and I'm going to get your energy. So be good. Pretend that this talk is amazing. Tonight was scheduled to be a long meditation, but I felt like it was a good idea to say something about this insanity that we're experiencing. So some of you guys are, I'm sure, listening from around the world, and if you're in LA, you already know that we're in lockdown. We're basically not supposed to be going to work, or unless you are totally essential, and all the restaurants are closed, all the bars are closed, and this is all because of the COVID-19 coronavirus. I've heard rumors that we're going into a more full lockdown where we're not even going to be able to leave the house for any reason except for maybe to go grocery shopping. I don't know if this is true or not, so until it happens, don't take my word for it. But it's getting crazy out there. I've heard that people are buying guns that have never used a gun before, which I guess is most people who buy guns if you're buying it for the first time. But let me be very clear with my view on this. I don't think anybody should have a gun, because then nobody's got a problem. But if you go out and get a gun for the first time and you don't know how to use it, and you expect it to help you in this situation, you are not right. You gotta train a lot with it and really know what you're doing and keep it safe, keep yourself safe from it. So the gun is not going to be the thing that helps you. And there are people that are, stocking up. There are just people who are being jerks. They're buying all kinds of, they're buying all the toilet paper from the store and selling it on Amazon for $80 a roll. That's crazy. You shouldn't do that. And then there are people who are all the way on the other end. I was listening to the news. There are kids still going on spring break who are just pretending that none of this is happening, or if it's happening, it doesn't affect me directly, so who cares? I'm just going to live my life and whatever. That's wrong. So these two attitudes are kind of like what you would see if you took surviving or thriving to the extreme. The extreme of surviving is, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm buying everything, I'm hoarding it, and I'm going to sell it at a massive markup or just keep it for myself. And I'm buying guns, and I'm hoarding ammo, and if anybody knocks on my door, I'm going to shoot them. This is not correct. I don't know what else to say about that. You shouldn't do that stuff. And then the other end is you're so not worried about surviving at all because you haven't seen anybody in your life that is affected by it. You yourself are not in the demographic that, at least previously, the reports were saying that it was very dangerous for. So you're 20 to 30, whatever. And so you're just out there pretending like nothing is happening. And it's great because there's nobody else on the beach because everyone else is at home. You're traveling. And look, I'm one to talk because I had a trip planned to New York to actually see a friend who I haven't seen in forever. And I'll tell you right now, I would not have gone on this trip except for this friend of mine is absolutely the worst. If I make a promise to see her and I don't show up, she does not let me live it down for years. And so I had to go, but as I was getting on the plane, I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. There was basically nobody on the plane. It was a third full. I had 3 full rows to myself. And it wasn't until I got back from New York that I actually heard that whereas previously there were fewer cases in New York and it was actually looking pretty good over there, when I got back they said, oh, actually we got a ton of cases now. And then I was thinking maybe I actually, I was at a higher risk being there. And of course, being on the airplane, I didn't get on the subway, but I would imagine that that's also a bad idea. So that's all to say that I recognize now that I probably shouldn't have done that, and I've been super careful since then. I'm asymptomatic, but that's part of the problem with the coronavirus is a lot of the people are people that are like me who have traveled and are asymptomatic but might still carry it. Those are the people that are spreading it. And so survival, way back to the other end again, is not just about me. It's about everybody else that I'm in contact with. So they say that the problem, the reason that this is such a dangerous virus is because everybody who gets it is then spreading it to 2 or 3 more people, and so it's exponentially spreading. So super dangerous, super scary. And I can totally understand why the lockdown is happening the way that it is and possibly getting even worse. So this is the reality that we find ourselves in. And it would be foolish to pretend that it were any other way, or it was any other way. The reality is that we shouldn't really be going outside and needlessly having social interaction. Working from home is best if we can do that. I'm in the dojo basically by myself or with 1 or 2 other people at any given time, keeping social distance. That's smart. And then once I've done that, I'm thinking, and especially for the students, and I've been talking about this all week, does that mean that life is just like automatically less than it was before? Does it have to be that I'm getting less done, or does it have to be that I am, less healthy or less happy? Does it have to be that I am no longer thriving to the level that I was, but I'm just barely hanging in there? And I thought about this with the classes that we're doing. For those of you that haven't gotten our emails or haven't been participating, we're doing all of our classes, the full schedule minus advanced classes. We're doing the full schedule online. I'm still teaching all of the classes, and attendance has actually been higher than it was before this. And I'm sure part of that is because everyone's at home with nothing else to do. And I'm sure part of it is because it's a really cool kind of novel thing that we're trying for the first time. And when this blows over and we no longer have to be quarantined in our houses, we're going to go back to regular classes. We will not be most likely still airing the classes live on the internet. But it is absolutely my belief. It is my very strong belief that we can use this opportunity and get more out of it, at least in certain ways, than we would have otherwise. And when I say thriving, I mean that this is an attitude of they talk about having an attitude of abundance, where if you're all about scarcity and you're thinking I gotta save this money and I can't do this and I can't do that, then you're kind of bringing more scarcity upon yourself. And the attitude of abundance is just I'm going to do and live and create more for myself and more for everybody else. And that's personally what I do, and it is something that I try to bring into this situation, because if we think of it this is just a bad thing, this is something that is impacting me negatively, and I'm a victim and woe is me, then I am for sure going to get less out of class than I would have otherwise, for example, or less out of anything. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. The reality is that we find ourselves in this situation where we are practicing from home or we're working from home, and there are ways to be and to act and to learn and to focus ourselves so that we are actually going to leave this period of time to come out on the other end of quarantine better off than we would have been otherwise. And so in class, for example, what we're doing is we can't do a lot of partner work, any at all so far. We might add that in later on, but we're really focusing on striking. We're focusing on what we can do, and we're looking at it from different angles, and we're practicing on different surfaces. And it's almost like when you go to retreat and you're put in a different environment, you're really forced to kind of be more creative and do things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So for sure, we're being forced to be creative here on the teaching end, but you guys at home, you are seeing things from a different way, from a different perspective, and you're able to really get in some ways, if not all ways, but we want to in all ways, you want to try to get better. And it's like you're under pressure in this situation. Like you're literally kind of being stuck and squeezed and pushed in a smaller physical space most of the time. And so I was like teaching the kids class earlier today, and I had them doing spinning kicks. And one of the kids, Sydney, who's got great kicks, she's got a wonderful attitude, but really good technique. And she was like doing it in her little bedroom that had like stuff like a foot away from over here and a foot away from over here. And I saw her doing kicks, and I was like, she's going to break something, maybe herself or maybe everything else in her room. But she was so focused and so good that she was able to do the spinning hook kicks and everything else without hitting anything or hurting herself. And it's a perfect example of this. Like Shihan Dunn said, I think, quoting one of his other teachers, he was asked, like, if you imagine that you're an orange, or imagine an orange and the orange gets squeezed, what do you get? You get orange juice, right? So what happens when you get squeezed? And Shihan Dunn heard the question. He said, what happens when I get squeezed? What do I get? Poop. and that's like what most of us are experiencing in this situation, is like we're getting squeezed and what's coming out is not the good stuff. You know, our attitude and our experience of life is not the best. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can get squeezed and give like the best possible orange juice. Like it could taste way better than it would have before. But it is a matter of being able to focus in a way or to an extent that you never have before. Another analogy that I use all the time with meditation is like when you're meditating and you have these thoughts that keep coming up, or the aches and pains or the distractions that are always there. It's not an if, it's a when are those things going to happen. What do you do with those things? So in Zen mind, beginner's mind, he talks about the idea of these mind weeds. And so you pluck the weeds up and you bury them and you use that to help yourself grow. Just like if it were a garden, you bury the weeds and it gives the flowers or the plants and fruit sustenance. So this difficulty, if we can use it to our advantage and grow from it, then we come out on the other end stronger. And there's this great story that I tell every once in a while about a POW. As far as I understand, this is a true story. It's not just one of those nonsense things that somebody said once and made up. But from what I understand, this was an actual person who was a prisoner of war for years. And while he was in prison, to keep himself from going insane, he would close his eyes and visualize himself going out to his favorite golf course, and he would play an entire round of golf. And he would do this with such detail, and he was so focused that he saw every single detail. He lined up every shot. He would see when he swung how the ball kind of sliced off, and so he corrected it on the next one. And he would see the sunrise and the sunset and the trees and everything. And he would play that round of golf in its entirety, to every excruciating detail. And then when he actually got released and returned home, he went to that golf course and he played, and he had shaved off several strokes from his game. He, just through the power of visualizing, not only did he survive in prison, but he thrived, at least in this one way. He came out better than when he went in. And there have been scientific studies that show how visualization can actually improve, and they did this with free throw shots in basketball. But that's just one example. It's one way of looking at this, where we can see like getting squeezed and being put in this position can actually give us a better opportunity to thrive. And so whatever comes next for us, and it might actually be at some point like I'm not allowed to come to the dojo anymore, so maybe I have to film these from home, or maybe I'll just sleep here upstairs, I don't know. That might happen for me, and it might happen for you guys, that like there is just no toilet paper left, and so you got to deal with it the way they do in Europe. Buy a bidet. But we want to thrive in whatever way is possible. And it might not be the same for you as it is for me or for anybody else. But this is something that we do as martial artists, is we learn to recognize that a problem or a challenge is actually an opportunity. In this case, an opportunity to grow. And if we see it like that, obviously at the other end we come out better. But in this moment, where we are, our life right now, this is what we call life now. We are happier. We are more fulfilled. We're more in the present. And I know that a lot of us are spending way more time with our family, probably way more time than we would have ever hoped or liked to spend with each other in a very small space. But that's a chance. That's a chance to get to know each other and to get to know ourselves. This is a wonderful time. Some of you guys who I've been talking to, you live by yourself, and it's like on the one hand you're kind of going nuts, but on the other hand it's kind of nice. You have that chance to practice, but to meditate, to spend some time in silence, and to really get to know yourself in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise. And for sure, if you think that it's rough spending time with other people, your family members or the people you're in a relationship, it can be even worse. Oftentimes it is worse just spending that time by yourself. But when you recognize that this is, again, the reality that we live in, this is the situation that is there for us to embrace, then it no longer has to be suffering. It no longer has to be anything other than exactly what it is, an opportunity. So that'll be the talk for tonight. We're going to meditate, and as you guys meditate, use this opportunity and recognize the similarities between when you're meditating and just sitting and being there with yourself and what you're doing for the rest of the day. What you're doing with your body, how are you able to come back to the breath, how are you able to be in your body, and how are you able to be in the moment? Because any kind of shakeup like this is just another opportunity to be mindful, to be aware of, what have I gotten complacent with? What have I gotten used to? What do I just kind of forget or just becomes habit? And we shake things up and realize that this is a perfect opportunity to practice being totally present, being happy, being there in the best possible way for ourselves and for everybody else. So let's sit comfortably.